To have you with us. It is a bright and early Wednesday morning. Lots of numbers to go through as we're now into the second day of results here from the National Results Operations Centre, known as NROC. We are going to be crossing live as well to all the various provincial operation centres around the country as well. Toombs, good morning to you. I heard you mentioning as well the total percentage of votes that are in. The IEC was saying last night, weren't they, Toombs, that we were going to be at 90%. I can promise you, if I look behind me, we're nowhere near that. We're 58% at the moment. So we're a little way off. There were worries that we weren't going to get the results by the end of today. And if we're only on 58%, it looks like that's 90%. Still a long, long way off, isn't it?
Yeah, still a long way to go. And I know there were expectations that by now would at least be left with a very small margin. But we'll be speaking about that with our various analysts this morning as to, what this counting means, because there have been concerns raised about the efficiency of the IEC during this local government elections. We're seeing it now with the counter. But we'll get into it as well, Gareth, in a moment. But also what I'm keen to also, get into, especially with some of our analysts this morning, is around how different parties have been performing so far. We know we haven't completed all the ballot papers in terms of counting, but it seems at least those reflections are coming through just in terms of how different parties are concerned. The ANC, the DA, the EFF, the FF+, but also the likes of New Party Action SA making some inroads. So that should be interesting to look at because of those potential coalition talks that might need to start.
Yeah, and this is where it's going to get complicated. Everyone that you and I spoke to as part of our feature, Make Me Your Mayor, Toombs, remember you and I would ask them, are you pro-coalition? Are you against coalitions? And a lot of them would say they would like to govern outright. Clearly, if you look at the numbers, that's not going to be the case. Let's just perhaps take a couple of minutes, if we can, just give everyone who's joined us here on the special elections edition of the South African Morning, just an overview of what we look like around South Africa this morning. We're going to start nice and broad. We're going to narrow down into the provinces, if you'll allow me to. South Africa, at the moment, this is how we look from a national picture. The ANC, as of this morning, sitting on 46.42%. The Democratic Alliance, nationally, 22.25%. And this is where you've got to be careful because the IEC website doesn't necessarily put everything into chronological order. In third place, from what I can gather, it's the EFF. 10.09, and then I have to start doing some quick maths in my head and see where else we are. It looks like the IFP nationally, Toombs currently at 4.5% as well. Let's take a quick look at the who would be next after that. The Freedom Front Plus, 2.72 as far as the national vote is concerned. And then we start getting into those parties, Tumelo, that are starting to get to the less than 2%, less than 1%. I know two of the parties, a lot of people were watching as we see that big board here behind me. One is Patricia de Lille's Good Party. They seem to be doing very well down in the Western Cape. Nationally, they're sitting at 0.82% at the moment. And then the UDM, how are they looking? All right, UDM supporters so far, 0.57% as well. And NFP, let's not forget NFP as well, just under 0.5% for them, 0.48%. So that's the national picture that we have at the moment. But you'll see as well, Toombs, and this is what you're talking about, the other parties, these coalition discussions that we're going to have with Jan Joubert and Wayne Sussman a little bit later. Right at the bottom of your screen, 8.42%. Tumelo is those other parties, and let's not forget independents as well, at 1.58% as well. All about coalitions and kingmakers. The question, who is going to talk to who and why are they going to get into bed with each other?
Now, that's going to be quite interesting to observe there. You mentioned the national outlook, just in terms of percentages. But, I mean, just from last night, at least what we know that in terms of councils, the ANC holding the 72 of the council so far, and also the DA, we understand, 21 councils, so far. But also when we're zoning it on to other provinces, Gareth, in Popo province there, it seems the ANC has already surpassed, the 60% mark, and the DA as well as the EFF seeming seemingly nowhere near the 20% mark within the Limpopo province alone. Of course, those numbers still trickling in, and that might change for the DA, the EFF, or any other political party at that. But also looking at the Eastern Cape, there it seems the ANC still looking at a majority of 65.53% of the voter support within that province. So we're seeing definitely zoning in on some of the provinces around the country. If you remember, the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro hotly contested at this point, but it seems that about 35 municipalities are still hanging in the balance there. The Nelson Mandela Bay being obviously one of them, but also we understand that, I mean, this is just the voting counting obviously seemingly continuing in parts of the country. So we should have a better picture today, because Simon Mabolo from the IEC did promise that today they should be concluding that voter count, and we should have a clearer picture of exactly where each political party stands. And I mean, we will be speaking to this about this with different political analysts about what it means for the parties, like you've mentioned, the coalition talks that are definitely possible for the outright majority. What does it mean for those parties that were confident? Because, as you mentioned, during our Make Me Your Mayor feature, most parties were confident of a clean sweep. That's what they wanted. But they were also equally willing to settle for a coalition should that be the case. So you remind me actually of what I heard from Action SA's Herman Mashaba saying he's willing to be in talks with the DA when it comes to a coalition government. So we'll be speaking about that as well in this hour, just to delve more into it, Gareth.
And you'll know as well, we've got an entire technical setup, an incredible team behind the scenes here for us at the NROC, Tumelo as well. What I'm going to ask one of our team members to do is, I'm going to ask him just to give us a nice wide shot of the IEC floor behind us. The reason I'm doing that is because you'll see a lot of empty chairs behind me, but you'll notice just one or two very dedicated IEC officials. I had a chat to them a little bit earlier, just before you and I went live as well. There's a lot of coffee. It's being measured by the tons, I'm sure, by now here at the IEC, sitting and watching numbers, dealing with issues as well. So those are the two big boards that we take a look at from the national picture. The green you're seeing is the ANC, yellow is the DA, and then you can get a sense of later on today just how busy this is going to get. If you look very carefully, middle of your screen at the bottom, you can see one or two IEC officials sitting as well. And if you move a little bit further to our left-hand side as well, then all you can see down there is, it seems one party has decided to be here overnight. It's the IFP. They have their little flag up as well. And I'm seeing one gentleman having walked in as well from the Freedom Front Plus. But this is what we have as well as far as political parties are concerned as well. Masego Rakhlaga are going to be joining us in a couple of moments as well. She's just getting ready to speak to one or two IEC officials. Now, just a reminder, we all had these concerns, didn't we, around load shedding or power cuts. I'm going to still call them power cuts because that's what they are. It was put on hold, if you will, rather conveniently, for the elections, and everyone was criticizing government, saying, well, hang on a moment, if we can get rid of load shedding for a day, why can't we get rid of load shedding going forward? And a lot of people, Toombs, I'm sure you'll agree, I think you and I discussed this, we're going to be having a big issue with power cuts the day after elections, and our words weren't cold, and we started getting load shedding and power cuts again yesterday. We're going to unpack what that means for the counting of votes around the country a little bit later. But that's what it looks like here at NROC for the second day of counting for the 2021 local government elections.
All right, Gareth, we'll be sure to come back to you for more from the National Results Operations Centre. But now let's go to the Western Cape. Lindsay Detlinger is at the Provincial Results Operations Centre there. Lindsay, good morning to you. It is second day of counting the results, and the IEC promising they'll be capturing, of course, these results, and at least 100% of them will, of course, be concluded by today. But what do you have so far for us within the province?
Morning, Tumelo. Well, we are certainly in the home straight here in the Western Cape. About 67% of votes now captured. We think there's a bit of a lag in the system of what we're able to access in terms of data. We understood just before midnight last night that it was still just the city of Cape Town outstanding to conclude that final result. But our systems show us that still outstanding also for George and Breda Valley. But certainly the city of Cape Town is the one to watch right now. What we're seeing is the DA still in the lead. They've gone over their 60%. Whether they will reach that two-thirds majority is still some time away. But what we do see, Tumelo, is certainly newcomers, the Good Party, Patricia de Lille's party, and the Cape Coloured Congress certainly making inroads, just under 5% each of the vote right now. And they will certainly, as it stands right now, be pushing out other more established opposition parties who have been part of the Cape Town Metro for some years and looked to take perhaps the fourth and fifth spots behind the ANC and the EFF. The ANC, incidentally, not performing well at all here, Tumelo. And while overall the DA has everything to lose here in the Western Cape, certainly the ANC performing really poorly, not only across the province but more specifically here in the city of Cape Town, Tumelo.
Right, and we were also understanding that, Lindsay, that the Democratic Alliance obviously dominating the Western Cape results. With that being said, they haven't been too happy, have they been, just in terms of the IEC and how they've handled these local government elections. If my memory serves me right, Helen Zille went as far as saying that they seem to have been inadequate training, from the IEC to their presiding officers. What are some of the concerns they've raised? I mean, this, of course, despite seemingly they are doing well within the province, but they haven't been too happy with the handling of the IEC for these elections.
Well, Tumelo, this stems back, some weeks ago when the IEC reopened the voters' roll. I was at Pinelands High School over the weekend when Helen Zille cast her vote, and an issue she raised there that we've also heard raised yesterday by the Good Party's Patricia de Lille, and certainly what I'm hearing on the floor here still yesterday evening is the situation of what they call MEC 7 voting applications, and those are really people who had registered in the most recent voter registration weekend, but when they turned up at the polling stations on Monday, their names were not on the voters' roll. And that was certainly the case we heard here yesterday of the Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Winde, also saying that he and his wife had registered at a new polling station over that registration weekend, and while his wife's name was on the register, his wasn't. But of course, he's the Premier of the province, so no IEC official's going to doubt that he is allowed to cast his vote there. But certainly that is a concern raised, and we see on latest printouts we got from the IEC last night, just that in the city of Cape Town, for example, almost 7,000 applications to vote where people's names were not on the voters' roll, but they were adamant and they could show sufficient proof to the IEC that they had indeed registered. So I think these are some of the issues that are going to come to the fore as the final results capturing gets closed, and of course there are always going to be those parties who dispute the result, and I think it's going to be one of the issues that they raise. But certainly from the DA side, Helen Zille already expressing some days ago that she didn't feel that the IEC was impartial enough given events in the run-up to this election, Tumelo.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay. We'll, of course, leave it there for now and come back to you for more developments as they occur. But let's get back now to the National Results Operations Centre. Gareth standing by there for the very latest. I mean, Gareth, that's exactly it. We are waiting for the conclusion of the counting. Today is the final day, and the IEC has promised, of course, to deliver.
Ma'am, can you keep it open for me?
Yeah, I'm afraid the promise yesterday by the IEC was perhaps a little ambitious, wasn't it, Tumelo? They were saying 90% by last night is where they were going to be. A couple of moments ago, I had 58%. Let me take a quick look at the board behind me. No, we haven't moved. At 5:15 in the morning, we're currently still at 58% of results that are in. Just a quick reminder, by the way, I mentioned the load shedding and power cuts issue. I just saw an update now. Load shedding suspended as of this morning. But what did that power cuts do? to the counting yesterday. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later as we zoom in on the national picture for you. We still have the ANC at the top of that leaderboard, the Democratic Alliance in second place, and the EFF in third place at just over 10%. But also on the floor for us, Masego Raglaga wandering about. I mentioned some very tired-looking IEC officials, and they are still ploughing through, aren't they, Masego?
That's true, Gareth. I mean, you'd find that on a lot of these desks here, there are energy drinks and even a few of those empty coffee cups. But I'm just going to go inside here, Gareth, just to show you. I know you gave the viewers and Dumelo the national picture. Indeed, we are 58% complete in terms of the counting in Gauteng. But I did ask for permission, Gareth. I mean, there are some specific metros that people are interested in. And I'm going to start, of course, with the metros in Gauteng. Those are the ones that are highly contested. You can see there in Gauteng specifically, we have completed 48% of the counting in terms of IEC officials. If you click on the city of Tshwane, which is that city that is also highly contested, the DA is still leading there. Yesterday when we left at around 8 p.m, the DA was at around 38%. This morning at 18 minutes past 5, Gareth, the DA in the city of Tshwane is at 35.07%, followed by the ANC. They've actually closed the gap, Gareth. They're at 32.4. Last night, there were about a 10% difference between the two, and of course the EFF still retaining its 10%, but Tshwane is only 23% complete, Gareth. So if you go into the city of Ekurhuleni, the ANC still leading there, and this is actually the metro that is almost complete compared to the other two. It's 63% complete in terms of counting, ANC leading, EFF last. But what's always been interesting is how the Action SA and FF Plus are becoming the new kingmakers this year, Gareth, for these metros, particularly in the province of Gauteng. But let's quickly move on to Johannesburg. Action SA is still third place. It's still that party that is going to be spoken to. A lot of the political parties, the DA and ANC, will be trying to negotiate with Action SA's Herman Mashaba. But of course, he said a couple of times that he'll work with anybody except the ANC. Now, I just want to see if I can show you another place in the Eastern Cape. We know that it's 74% complete, most of it being the ANC outright majority in the entire province of the Eastern Cape, 65.5%. But there is a specific area which is Nelson Mandela Bay, and if you just look there, how Nelson Mandela Bay is competing. The ANC and DA very close by. You'd remember that right now in Nelson Mandela Bay, it's a DA-led administration, but it's a coalition. So over there as well, a lot of people thinking that there'll be a continuation of a coalition. As you can see there, the ANC and DA very close in terms of the numbers there. So those are the metros that have been quite interesting for a couple of people, Gareth, in terms of the coalitions that we might see.
And also let's remind viewers as well, apart from the data that we're getting there, Masego, as well, that what we've got is the eNCA Ipsos poll. This is a deep dive. It's a granular look at the numbers as far as projections are concerned. Yesterday, when I was in Studio 1 at our Hyde Park headquarters, we had Yan Joubert and Wayne Sussman speaking to us about projections that they've been looking at as well. We brought you one of those being Ekurhuleni as well. If, in case you missed it last night, another one of those projections coming through last night. We actually had Wayne Sussman on with Sally Burdett last night as well. Just to remind you, the projection of that at the moment is the ANC. This is the city of Joburg. So for Johannesburgers, this one's for you. The 33%, the DA 25%, Action SA, and this is what Masego is talking about. Action SA 16%, and the EFF 10% as well. So that is as far as some of the projections are concerned. But bearing in mind, we're only about 58% of the count in at the moment. I know Johannesburg Control asking me to go somewhere as well. I'll just wait for them to come back to me as to where they would like me to go. But a reminder, while I wait for that instruction, is just that you can head over to eNCA.com throughout today as well. We have a blog, a live blog that's being updated throughout today. You also get those results that you see there for the national picture. Tumelo, let's go back to you. Studio 1 in Hyde Park. We're back to the National Results Operations Centre a little bit later. We're currently sitting at 58% of results that are in.
Exactly, that's how we're sitting there. And of course, Masego giving us that breakdown of provincially how it's looking, well, at least in as far as those metros are concerned, particularly in Gauteng, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni there, but also Johannesburg in the Eastern Cape as well, that hotly contested metro, the Nelson Mandela Bay, seemingly the D and the ANC coming in tight. They're close in terms of numbers. We'll be continuing with our conversation and analysis right here on the South African Morning.